Now, a day ahead of this testimony, what do these two companies have at stake?
Look, I think the stakes for them are they don't want to misstep. They don't want to say anything they shouldn't. And I think both Jack Dorsey and Sheryl Sandberg are pretty practiced spokespeople for their companies at this point. And I don't anticipate that they will set a foot wrong. The challenge, though, is that you never know what members of Congress will ask, right? That the hearings are about election interference in the Senate's case and about kind of free speech and censorship on the House case. But the members of Congress can ask whatever they want, and that's the real risk, is that they'll be asked something that they can't answer and say the wrong thing.
So, Dr. Helmus, knowing what you know about Russia's influence, what kinds of questions do you think they should have to answer to, given what you know about the scope of this interference and the likelihood that it's happening again?
Well, Emily, last year, when the lawyers for the tech companies testified, the key question was how did Russia use those platforms in the 2016 election? And this year, the questions are going to be a bit different. I think now the fundamental issue is what have these platforms done to protect the United States against future Russian information attacks?
So what do you think about what they have done? I mean, they're adding artificial intelligence, they're adding thousands of jobs, and yet, just a couple of weeks ago, we heard that the companies both shut down hundreds of accounts, not just tied to Russia, but Iran.
Yeah, no, it's a steep issue that they have to climb, and I think particularly interesting about recently is they detected a number of pages that appeared to be Russian in origin, and some of those have been up for 15 months before they got detected. So obviously a fundamental issue is, can these companies detect Russian actions or other foreign government actions on their sites? And then once they do detect it, what are they going to do to shut it down? That's really a fundamental question. Obviously, the recent intrusions show that detecting that stuff is not an easy task, and it's an uphill battle.
Now, Shira, we spoke with Representative Ryan Costello last week. He is on the House Energy and Commerce Committee. We'll be questioning Jack Dorsey. Take a listen to the questions he would like Mr. Dorsey to answer.
But can you demonstrate, can you sort of open your algorithm up to us so that we're able to see that there's not content bias there? And then I think the other thing that is less about whether there's a philosophical bias there as something even more fundamental. And that is, does your algorithm, in essence, reward extremist rhetoric, be it on the left or on the right? We are at a moment in time where the very fabric of our political culture continues to deteriorate.
Now, Mark Zuckerberg has already been through this. We can expect, perhaps, that Sheryl Sandberg will stick very closely to what Zuckerberg has already said before Congress. What makes Dorsey's appearance, Shira, different? I mean, obviously, the platform is completely different in size and scope, and Twitter has actually talked about how they just don't have the resources that Facebook has to stop this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, resources are certainly an issue at Twitter that, as you said, Facebook does not have a resources problem. It's interesting, the representative talked about opening up algorithms to kind of outside review, which is an issue that has now come up both on the left side of the political spectrum and on the right side of the political spectrum. And I don't think that's something that any of the internet companies would permit to happen. But it's an interesting idea, right, that there's a growing recognition that what we see on Facebook and what we see on Google is not the result of some, neutral computers reacting to the ideas of billions of people, but they're the result of algorithms created by human beings, right? And human beings with all their inherent bias. And I think those are interesting questions about, what actually goes into the search results we see on Google, or how our Facebook news feed is ordered, and does it reward kind of the most egregious and strongly held opinions, no matter how wrong they are, and what, if anything, should be done to stop it? I think those are, big questions about the internet, what kind of internet we want to have in the future.
Dr. Helmus, to that point, human beings are inherently flawed, inherently biased. They build the technology and the artificial intelligence that is fighting this kind of meddling. So given what you know about how the Russians achieved what they achieved in 2016, is it really possible for Facebook and Twitter, which are run by human beings, to stay ahead of the meddling when we know that the attackers are always sort of one step more advanced than we are, if not more?
Yeah, that's a fundamental problem. I mean, it really is an arms race out there because you're right. As Facebook and Twitter and others and researchers look to detect ways of identifying their content, the Russians and certainly other governments such as China and other actors will be detecting new ways to insert that content in there. And some of the ways that have been used to detect the content so far, I mean, what Russia paid for some of its social media campaigns in rubles back in 2016, and they probably won't make that mistake again. So it is going to be an arms race. I think the trick is to continue the research. We'll make it a very easy arms race if there are not funds put forward to conduct the relevant research on this, and if the platforms do not keep trying to fight the good fight.
Shira, walk us through how Google fits into this, given that they are not sending their CEO. Congress was not very happy about that, but Google will still be present.
Yeah, I think it's going to be incredibly awkward, right? If there's basically an empty chair where a Google representative is supposed to go, and in a way that makes them an easy punching bag at this hearing in the Senate tomorrow, that we just, they're obviously part of the internet conversation, both in terms of search and on YouTube. And to not have a representative there, it just feels like a misstep by Google, although I can understand that they didn't want to send Larry Page, who I think would be awkward in that setting, to say the least.